Well, happy Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. That sounds about right. It's Thursday. It's April the 9th, 2020. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff, and this is the video edition, I guess, of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. Thank you so much to everybody that's decided to jump on and join the live stream, and welcome to anybody who has happened to maybe stumble across this later on, at a later time. Did a little bit of reconfiguring with some cameras, did a little bit of reconfiguring of the studio, so hopefully this looks presentable to all of you. I've got the Vegas Golden Knights jersey still hanging in the background here, as well as some various other Las Vegas paraphernalia. So hopefully this looks wonderful and this looks acceptable to you. I hope you're all doing okay. I hope everything is going well for you. I really just wanted to jump on here today and do a brief little update of everything that kind of happens to be going on in my world, in the world of the podcast. And of course, I've gotten into doing these little kind of gut checks with all of you guys to just sort of get a feel for how things are going on in your worlds, because it's a weird, crazy time right now. And I feel like it's important to do these checks and to just kind of check in with everyone and make sure that everyone is doing okay. If I bang the microphone a couple of times, I apologize. This is a new sort of positioning for the microphone for me, and I'm not used to things being down here. So anyways, you can see I put on a nice shirt today. I don't know why I felt the need to do that today. In all honesty, quarantining is kind of, it's starting to get me down a little bit. Not being able to leave the house is starting to get me down a little bit. I mean, I'm still leaving the house on occasion, just, for the usual stuff to go and, hit the grocery store and grab necessities as needs be and things like that. But I thought, you know what, it's kind of a nice sunny day outside today. The weather's supposed to be quite wonderful here in Calgary, where I'm located, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to dress a little bit fancy, just for something different, just because I feel like I need to maybe put on a nice shirt. Now, that's not to say I'm wearing pants. Let's not get nuts here, because that's a very distinct possibility that I'm not. I am. Trust me, promise you, I'm wearing pants. Anyways, so how are all of you doing? That's really the main reason that I wanted to jump on here today, was just to kind of, again, I've found that doing these little kind of gut checks and just sort of jumping on to find out how people are doing and have a little bit of a conversation with everyone, even if I can't have a actual full-fledged conversation with you, I feel like it's still important for me to be able to do that and come on and again, just kind of do these little gut checks, these little mental health checks. Again, things with me are doing okay. Starting to get a little bit of maybe cabin fever, I guess, especially again with the weather starting to get a little bit nicer outside, feeling like, it's, I don't know, it's tough. It's tough being inside, but the world is a weird place and there's lots of strange things going on. And again, it's just, in my mind, I feel like it's just important to get on and do these little checks and these little updates and have a conversation with you guys, even if it just happens to be a little one-way conversation. That's it. The other thing I wanted to do was I kind of wanted to update everyone on the progress of the podcast and what's going on with the podcast and what I'm kind of working through right now and trying to figure out. So it's going to be a busy few days. In all honesty, I have got a ton of stuff lined up for the next few days. Today is going to be first day of many interviews. I am going to be interviewing Murray Sawchuk, who you may know as Murray the Magician. He is a headliner. He's been a headliner in Vegas for many years now. He's headlined at Planet Hollywood. When Vegas is open and things are normal, he performs at the Laugh Factory at the Tropicana. He's got an amazing social media following and a huge audience on YouTube. If you search out Murray Sawchuk or you search out Murray the Magician on YouTube, you'll see some of the videos that he's got on there. And I must say, he does some amazing stuff. So I'm going to be jumping on, chatting with him later on this afternoon, and having a conversation. We're going to talk about, his life and how he came to end up in Vegas. He's a fellow Canadian as well, born and raised in Burnaby, BC. So I'm sure we'll bond over some Canadiana over the course of the conversation. The neat thing that I'm going to do with Murray as well is I'm actually going to be doing this conversation. In the past, I've done all of my interviews just strictly audio, and which is great, which is fun. But now that I've got a little bit more time on my hands, if you've been following the podcast and my Twitter and such, you'll know why that is. Now that I've got a little bit more time on my hands, I've decided I want to start adding some video content to the podcast. So, I'm going to be chatting with Murray via video, and over the course of the conversation, I'm going to get Murray to show us some magic tricks, and we'll put that up as bonus content available on the website or on Facebook. I'm going to figure out the logistics of that. But anyway, looking forward to chatting with Murray a lot today. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then coming up this weekend on Saturday, I'm going to be chatting with Devin and Nina, who are the hosts of the Socially Distant Show. What is the Socially Distant Show? Well, Devin and Nina, I saw this article. It came up on Twitter over the course of the last week here. Devin and Nina are legit Vegas showgirls. They are much like everybody else in the Vegas entertainment community right now. They are under quarantine. They are under lockdown. They wanted to do something that would allow Vegas entertainers to perform, but without being out in public, obviously. So what they've done is they've put together this show on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook called The Socially Distant Show. They did their first big episode last night. It was a lot of fun to watch. Just seeing Vegas entertainers and Vegas performers being able to do their thing and perform live for people who normally maybe wouldn't get to see them, who wouldn't get to see them perform. And of course, with the lockdown and the shutdown and everything being closed, they can't be performing for anybody anyways. Now, the really cool thing is Devin and Nina have thrown a charitable aspect to this as well. So they're taking donations via Venmo and GoFundMe for people who are performing. They're going to split the proceeds of that over the course of once everything's all done. So I'm looking forward to chatting with them this weekend. I'm also going to be chatting. This one I'm looking forward to as well. I'm going to be chatting with Mac and the Cheese. This is Mackenzie Fly and Colin Cahill, who are a couple of Vegas performers who are married, and they are also stuck in lockdown and quarantine. And so they have put together this little comedy duo, Mac and the Cheese. They've got some originals that they've put together, some original songs. So I'm going to be chatting with them about Mac and the Cheese and what they've got going on with that. And then also find out a little bit about their history and their background and all of that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. We're going to be talking to them on Monday for an upcoming episode. And then as well, this is one that I actually had planned prior to the pandemic shutting everything down. Jeff Schumacher, who has been on the podcast before. He was in a past episode called Mob Rules, and we did a episode about the history of the mob in Las Vegas. And so what Jeff has done, Jeff is he's one of the upper ups, one of the big kahunas with the Mob Museum. And he has recently re-released a book all about Howard Hughes. Now, for those who don't know, Howard Hughes was a inventor. He was an aviator. He was a filmmaker. He was a really smart guy. He was also ridiculously rich. And so He's got a bit of a history with Las Vegas. He was a little eccentric. He was a little weird, did some strange stuff. And so, again, he's got a bit of a history with Las Vegas. So Jeff is going to come on the show to talk about Howard's history in Las Vegas. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to having Jeff on to talk about all of that. That one, as I say, I actually had that interview planned prior to everything getting shut down. And now that this is kind of the direction that I want to go with the podcast, I thought it would be great to actually get Jeff back on the podcast and have that discussion about Howard Hughes and some of the weird stuff that Howard Hughes did while he lived in Las Vegas. And there's some really crazy stuff. So looking forward to that. Now, I also have an episode that's it's sitting in the can, and it's been there for a while now. And I'm not really 100% sure when I'm going to release this episode. And I had teased this episode back a while ago and recorded it quite some time ago. I had a conversation with a lady by the name of Jacqueline Whitmore. And Jacqueline is an etiquette expert. And I had put together an episode talking about tipping etiquette in Las Vegas, because this is one of the big things that people seem to really want to argue about on all the different Vegas Facebook groups and social media and Twitter. And anytime, if you want to see people absolutely lose their ever-loving shit on social media, jump on a Vegas Facebook group and ask how much you should tip so-and-so. So I had put this episode together back weeks ago, and the original release date for this episode was going to be back middle of March. And then when everything kind of went sideways and I wasn't really 100% sure what direction I wanted to go with the podcast, I actually pulled this episode back and made the decision to not release the episode. So it's kind of sitting in the archives, and it's sort of sitting there, and I'm not really 100% sure what to do with it. I don't know whether it's appropriate to release it as a new episode. I don't really know if it's appropriate to release it right now with everything shut down. I don't really know if the tipping procedures and etiquette that we talked about in that podcast are still going to be relevant anymore once things start coming back. I don't know. People might want to tip more when they go back to Las Vegas. They may want to tip less because they can't afford it. So I'm really not 100% sure how to go about handling that episode. So if you're watching and you have any suggestions on how whether you think I should release it as a regular episode, maybe I should release it as bonus content, maybe I should release it as a premium episode, feel free, send me a message, come at me on Twitter, send me a message on Instagram, send me a message on Facebook, drop me an email, whatever you decide you want to do. I'd really like to get your opinion on whether or not you think I should release this episode as a regular episode. So that's kind of where that's at. Now, speaking of bonus content, I mentioned that I'm going to be getting Murray, the magician, Murray Sawchuk, to do some magic for us via Zoom, via video today, as a part of his interview. So I'm planning on putting that out as bonus content again. I'm looking at all kinds of different things for possible bonus content. I'm looking at, I've set up Patreon for the podcast. I haven't done anything with it in a very, very long time. And a lot of that just simply had to do with, A, not having the time to maintain it, and B, not really knowing exactly what to offer. So now that I've got a little more time on my hands, and I'm able to actually maybe start putting out some video and putting together some bonus content and things like that, I'm going to be looking at relaunching the Patreon for the podcast. So if, this will be your opportunity to, again, I don't want to get all PBS on people because I hate when that happens. But I think this would be an opportunity for people who are frequent listeners of the podcast and loyal listeners of the podcast to support the podcast in their own little way. And of course, in turn, not just give me money to pay me and pay for the podcast and stuff, but get a little something in return. So some of the things I'm looking at, as mentioned, I'm looking at, putting together video versions of the podcast, which I actually did for the last episode, for episode number 57, for Darkest Before the Dawn. I put together a video version of the podcast, which was basically just me, the same as this, just talking to the camera and doing the podcast. I'm looking at doing, again, extra video content like Murray doing magic for us as part of the video. When I have Colin and Mackenzie, Mac and the Cheese on, I'm looking at getting them to perform some music for me as part of that, and maybe releasing that video as bonus content. I've got some other stuff in my back pocket that I'm working on with that. Looking at extra audio content, of course, maybe looking at some bonus episodes, providing access to some live streams. And then I'm also looking at trying to put together some experiences, because I feel like Vegas is one of those places that it's all about the experiences, right? It's all about the stuff that you get to do. So I'm looking again at putting together some experiences, maybe some patron only hangouts. We'll do those by Zoom, some virtual get-togethers. Last week I did a little get-together on Zoom. I called it my quarantine-orific Vegas-style day drinking get-together. It was a lot of fun. I had a few people jump on. We enjoyed a few beverages. We hung out. We shared some Vegas stories, stuff like that. So maybe I'll look at doing some of that stuff. Maybe once Vegas is back to normal, and once things are back to the way they should be and people are traveling, maybe look at doing some in-person invite-only hangouts for patrons and get-togethers, things like that. So there's lots of stuff that I'm looking at. And again, it's all kind of just about expanding the brand, expanding the podcast, and finding new ways to actually come together and get that going and get that happening. So again, the old melon up here is working overtime. I'm one of those people that when it comes to this stuff, my brain never stops. It's almost, I don't want to say it's almost annoying. It actually is completely and utterly annoying. So again, I'm one of those people that when I get an idea, I'll jot it down, I'll throw it on a piece of paper, and I'll file it away kind of in the back of my mind for a later time. And that's what I try to do. And that's what I try to get on here. So, so these are all things that I'm looking at putting together and looking at trying to get moving and get going. So, hopefully there's some things that as I say, I can try and get happening as we all kind of deal with this crazy world that we're living in right now. Something else I did want to mention here before I wrap things up. I didn't want to take up a whole lot of everybody's time today. I wanted to kind of keep things relatively easy breezy. I've said it before. I will say it again. If you need to talk, this is a incredibly weird time for everyone. There's a lot of oddness happening in the world right now. If you need to talk, I am here for you. I know I'm just some stranger on the other side of a microphone or on the other side of a webcam. But if you need to talk, I am here to talk. And you are more than welcome to get in touch with me, reach out to me, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Jeff Does Vegas. You can see the right there, the bottom, other side over here, bottom of the screen right there. That's where you can get me at Jeff Does Vegas, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also email me directly, Jeff at jeffdoesvegas.com. If you need to talk, I'm here. I got nothing else going on. Really, honestly, you can send me a message if you really need a person to talk to. I'm willing to go on FaceTime or Facebook Messenger or Zoom or Skype or whatever And I'm willing to have a conversation with you if you need somebody to talk you through something difficult. You know what? If you have ideas for the podcast, if you have topics you would love me to cover, by all means, send me a message. Last week during the quarantine-horrific Vegas style day drinking spectacular, we actually had a little bit of a brainstorm and had some ideas come out of that, of stuff that people would like to see me cover on the podcast. So again, you are absolutely 100% more than welcome to reach out to me and get in touch with me by either any of those methods, and let me know what you want to hear on the podcast, or again, just reach out to me and have a conversation. I also want to very quickly say thank you to everybody who has taken a listen to episode number 57 of the podcast, which just dropped here on Monday. It's called Darkest Before the Dawn. It's really, there's no guests on the podcast. There's no craziness to the podcast. It was really just my way of trying to talk everybody through all of this weirdness and craziness that's going on in the world right now. That's really all it was. And I mean, I kind of talked through some of my thoughts and opinions on whether or not, when Vegas was going to open, how it was going to open. I talked about the phased opening and things like that. So again, that's really what it was all about. Take a listen to it. I welcome your feedback. I encourage your feedback. You're absolutely more than welcome to reach out to me and tell me what you think of the episode. I would 100% love to hear your thoughts. And of course, if you're quarantined and you're looking for something to listen to, there are 56 other episodes of the podcast that you can jump in and listen to. Go through the archives, take your pick. I'm not just saying this because it's my podcast, but I think there's some really good stuff in there. I've had a lot of fun doing this podcast, and I've really enjoyed putting together some of these episodes and some of these conversations. I would recommend skipping ahead to like episode maybe 4 or 5. That's just my thought. The first 3 episodes were really kind of rough, in all honesty. But I would recommend jumping ahead, like episode number 3, episode number 4. I think that was kind of where things started to get good-ish. So I'd recommend going in and jumping into some of those episodes and taking a listen to some of those. And if you like what you hear, tell a friend. And if you don't like what you hear, tell me, because I want to know what I can be doing to make things a little bit better for you. In the meantime, I've taken up more than enough of your time. Thank you so much for jumping on and checking out this live stream, or if you're watching it re-recorded or tape delayed, however you want to deal with it. Thank you for taking the time to jump on and watch it. I really do appreciate it. In the meantime, a new episode will be dropping on Monday at jeffdoesvegas.com. Also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean. Pretty much anywhere you find a podcast, you're going to be able to find my podcast. As mentioned, brand new episode will be dropping on Monday. Who's going to be on that episode? You're just going to have to download it to find out. Thanks so much, everybody. Have an awesome, excellent rest of your day. Stay safe, and please stay healthy. Bye, everyone.